This is my degree. Every year, millions of young people around the world are working to achieve this. These students do what they are told to do by their universities. It is time to question this. Why should we care what our universities tell their students to do? What is wrong with what our universities tell their students to do? And how can students learn in a better way? I believe that how well our universities perform influences how well everything performs. Because our universities produce the people that run human society. Our hospitals, our companies, our governments. This is why we should care what our universities tell their students to do, because it determines what they learn and what good they can do in the world. Now think about this. Imagine a new university which is designed for one thing: to create a more advanced human being, an immensely knowledgeable, skilled, strong, healthy, problem-solving, creative creature, made possible by using the best educational technology and research available. Imagine what we could achieve if we were like that. I can't think of a more exciting idea. So, I've dedicated my life to making this happen. I've begun by spending the last 5 years trying to understand what is wrong with the current system. So, what is wrong with what our universities tell their students to do? Let's start with lectures. In 1976, the research of Professors Percival and Johnston revealed that adult learners are incapable of continually focusing on a lecture for longer than 20 minutes. Yet, many lectures last for up to 120 minutes. In 1987, Professor Kathy Rule published her pause procedure study. This tiny technique improved the ability of students to remember lecture content by about 2 grade boundaries. Yet, most lecturers don't use pause procedure at all. In 2011, Krista K. McIntyre's work concluded that people find it much easier to remember information that emotionally arouses them. Yet, most lecturers are lucky to barely interest their audience, let alone arouse them. What's going on? Lecturers are not lecturing in the fashion that key studies advise them to lecture in. And please know that I've only mentioned 3 of over 640 such studies. The problem is training. Lecturers are given minimal, if any, quality training in how to lecture. And so, our universities are telling their students to go to lectures which are delivered by people who don't know how to lecture. This is why most lectures suck. It's why, as Carl Wyman tells us, students can forget information they've heard during lectures within the space of 15 minutes. It's why, as Hestinus, Hake, and Mazur have proven, students can fail to improve their understanding of vital concepts after months of lecturing on said concepts. It's why students are using the calculators on their phones during lectures to do something I call angry arithmetic. They divide their annual tuition fee by the number of lectures they have each year, then multiply this figure by the number of other students around them to work out how much money the university is making from their lecture. They're angry! They're angry because they feel like they're being screwed. They're angry because universities fail to teach their teachers how to teach their students. How students are told to work together is also very important, because our species is a species of teams. The history of our species is a history of teams. Teams of counterparts, different people with different skills working together. The first hunters, gatherers, and homemakers who got us through our early years. The architects, stonemasons, and religious leaders who created the Parthenon. The scientists, engineers, and astronauts who took us to the moon. All of our greatest achievements are the achievements of teams of counterparts. Modern professionals work with their counterparts, but students are told to work alone, or with their copies. Think about it. Business studies students work with other business studies students. Computer science students work with other computer science students. This is separation by course taken. And universities do this to their students because they do not understand teamwork. And so our campuses produce countless underachieving individuals instead of creative, collaborative, problem-solving teams. Our copies can't make us successful, but our counterparts can. What about all of those essays and exams students are told to write? In the professional world, we're valued based upon the work we can do which actually matters to other people, our colleagues, clients, and society. In the university world, students are told to prepare for this by spending their time repetitively writing essay assignments and doing exams which don't matter to anyone at all. In fact, they're not even seen by anyone, apart from the professor who marks them. Despite this being an uninspiring and unbalanced approach to learning, universities claim that doing this instills critical thinking skills into their students. Critical thinking is the ability to think logically and to only accept arguments that are firmly based in evidence. It is traditionally believed to be the most important skill that universities provide. But do they? In 2011, Richard Arum and Josipa Roxa published their findings from the CLA, the Collegiate Learning Assessment. They tested 2,322 students from 24 different universities for signs and improvement over time in their critical thinking skills. This study was a big deal. Many academics know about it, most students don't. The CLA concluded that after 2 years, 45% of students showed no statistically significant improvement whatsoever. After 4 years, 36% had still failed to improve at all. Those that did improve, on average, their scores only meagerly differentiated them from the original scores they got when they first became students. A lot of the work students are told to do doesn't just fail to matter to other people, it fails to educate them. Because students doing work that doesn't matter doesn't work. And how about the degree itself? In the late 1800s, De Beers Diamond Mining Company was concerned, as worldwide the diamond price was falling. There were too many in the market. The diamond industry had become a victim of its own success. This problem that De Beers faced in the 1800s is actually very similar to the problem that universities face today. The once almighty degree is no longer a sign of pedigree because so many people have them. Regardless, students are still told to obsess over them, when in reality, they no longer impress anyone. They're a minimum expectation instead. Degrees are like diamonds. The more there are, the less they're worth. We have a problem. Our young people are being completely misled by their universities. They are being told to spend their time sitting in lecture halls, listening to lecturers who don't know how to lecture. They are being told not to work with their counterparts and not to do work which actually matters, when in the professional world, their ability to do these things will define their value to society. They are being told to obsess over a qualification which is worth less and less. And none of this is just my opinion. The studies I have referred to come from the universities themselves. They're refusing to act upon the findings of their own research. That is what's wrong with what our universities tell their students to do. So, how can students learn in a better way? I spent the latter 2 of my 3 university years trying to answer this question. I founded an organization with my fellow students trying to answer this question. I traveled, I researched, but I couldn't find the answer to it wherever I looked, until I took a moment to look at myself. I compared who I had been 2 years before with who I had become, and I suddenly realized how much I had changed. I had grown. I had new skills and values, and that's when I worked it out. My search, ironically, my search for a better way of learning was itself the better way of learning. My search was a purpose. Work I believed was more important than myself. Over my 2 years working in pursuit of this purpose with other students from other courses, I exposed myself to the things that university never could. I learned that pursuing purpose with our counterparts exposes us to learning university can't. Let me explain. In order to pursue my purpose, I knew I needed a team. So I learned how to meet, communicate with, and recruit people I'd previously never seen. This team needed direction and a plan. So I told myself that of leadership, I'll learn all that I can. We needed funding and training, so I learned pitching and persuading. In time, I was noticed for what I was up to, and as a result, I joined an international network of people I looked up to. Do you see what happened? My desire to achieve my purpose was drawing me out, into the world. It was a charge which started off a chain of challenges. The greatest mistake our universities make is to tell their students to do work which doesn't matter alongside other students who study the same thing that they do, because this fails to expose them to anything new. Pursuing purpose with our counterparts exposes us to learning university can't. I believed in this idea. So, when I graduated, I took out a loan I couldn't afford, and I spent 3 years creating an experimental place of learning which was dedicated to its practice. We recruited university students and a few sixth formers, and our wonderful partner organization gave us some funding and a big office to work from. We called it Ambition House. Ambition House recruited the students who weren't getting enough from their lectures because universities failed to teach their teachers how to teach their students. These students worked in teams with their counterparts, other students from other courses, because our copies can't make us successful, but our counterparts can. The work these teams did had to actually matter to other people, because students doing work that doesn't matter doesn't work. And students would do this work on top of their degrees, because degrees are like diamonds. The more there are, the less they're worth. In short, students would refuse to be separated, and they would dedicate themselves to something greater than themselves, because pursuing purpose with our counterparts exposes us to learning university can't. One of our teams, made up of sociology, computer science, and graphic design students, worked together to create software which aimed to help school teachers improve their teaching. In doing so, they persuaded a high net worth individual to make an offer of investment in their work. A 19-year-old delivered the pitch. Another team, driven by their passion for filmmaking, taught themselves how to film, edit, and recruit and manage actors. They were young, but despite their age, their clients were happy to pay them thousands of pounds for their work. Another team created a mobile app which mocked the racist views of a well-known UK politician in order to engage more young people in politics. In doing so, they greatly annoyed this politician. And as a result, 28,000 people downloaded their app, and nearly every major UK newspaper covered the story online. Whilst our students, like Alex, John, Oscar, and Ed, were pitching for investment, negotiating client contracts, and speaking to journalists, other students were writing essays they didn't believe in for professors who didn't want to read them. Pursuing purpose with our counterparts exposes us to learning university can't. Now, Ambition House was not perfect. We made loads of mistakes, but we did demonstrate the value of our idea. And what our teams did is just a taste of what students around the world who pursue purpose with their counterparts are capable of learning and achieving. For example, March 2012, a biomedical engineering student called Colleen and James, who studies mechanical engineering, are shortly joined by Jarrell. He studies computer systems and electrical engineering. Together, they create Vital Bio, a system that uses white light to kill deadly bacteria in hospitals. Continuous disinfection simply by having the lights on. Pretty good idea when you consider that millions of people die every year from hospital-acquired infections. January 2013, Greg studies neuroscience and English. Gabby studies philosophy and economics. Together, they order 2,000 live crickets to their campus home. Then, by using their oven and a blender, they start an insect protein bar company. They did this because they know that we need to start eating more insect meat and less animal meat if we want a sustainable food supply. A more obvious example, February 2004, a psychology major, 2 economics students, a computer science student, and a literature and history student team up to found Facebook. It's the same thing, over and over again. It is when we work with people who have different skills to ourselves that we are able to learn and achieve things which are greater than ourselves. This is my degree. Every year, millions of young people around the world are working to achieve this. These students do what they are told to do by their universities. It is time to question this. It is time for universities to train their employees properly, because universities fail to teach their teachers how to teach their students. It is time for students to refuse to be separated because our copies can't make us successful, but our counterparts can. It is time for students to deny the lie that writing endless, inconsequential essays and exams is the kind of work they should be doing, because students doing work that doesn't matter doesn't work. It is time for students to demand more from themselves than this trite qualification, because degrees are like diamonds. The more there are, the less they're worth. Students, go to university, but do not confine your education to ineffective teaching methods which bore you, silence you, separate you, and waste your potential. Instead, form teams with other students from other courses, and together with them, dedicate yourself to something greater than yourself. Because pursuing purpose with our counterparts exposes us to learning university can't. This is my idea, worth spreading. And this might be something I do which I regret, but it's so you remember it. Oh. Thank you.